everyone, John Ramdeen with you here in the Fight Network studios. This is FNE, where we see what the MMA media is reporting to the world. Making news today, a former UFC champion is hoping to return to action before year's end. A 115-pound contender is looking to return to the cage in early 2016, and Colossus and a former pro wrestler collide in a rematch. Former UFC heavyweight champion Andrei Arlovski is looking to get right back into the mix and is targeting a December return to the octagon. The Jackson Winklejohn fighter is coming off a decision victory over submission fighter Frank Mir at UFC 191 in Las Vegas. After seeing a physician, the Pitbull said he only suffered bruises in his last match and is hoping to get back to work as soon as the UFC gives him the nod. Top-ranked strawweight Claudia Gadelha will be sidelined for almost half a year. The 13-1 Brazilian is still trying to rest up and heal her injured finger, which has inhibited training. Gadelha hoped to be ready to rematch champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk, but the time isn't right. The 26-year-old Novo União product is coming off a decision triumph victory over top-rated Jessica Aguilar in her UFC debut. The Invicta FC veteran holds a win over Canadian Valerie Letourneau, who will be facing Jędrzejczyk for the UFC title. Two heavyweights will square off in a rematch when ATT star Bobby Lashley tangles with Pride and Cage Rage veteran James Colossus Thompson. The two will battle it out at Bellator 145, which is scheduled for November 6th in St. Louis. The two faced off in 2012 and Thompson walked away with the victory. Since then, the former pro wrestler has won 6 straight, with 5 coming by stoppage. It will be the first bout in over a year for the Englishman, who will try to add to his 6-fight unbeaten streak. The card will also feature Pitbull Freite and Daniel Strauss in a rematch, while Will Brooks and Pat Curran and Michael Chandler will all be in action. The UFC returns to Japan, and we are getting you set Saturday, September 26th. It all goes down at 7 p.m. Eastern. The main event, former UFC heavyweight champion Josh Barnett tangles with Roy Big Country Nelson. Happy to be joined by Fight Network boxing analyst Corey Erdman, Floyd Mayweather, Andre Berto. It's going down this weekend, but we're not talking about that bout. We're talking about Floyd Mayweather and this whole controversy with the IV ban. Apparently, the Nevada State Athletic Commission showed up during the whole Pacquiao Mayweather bout, found this IV, which was supposed to be banned, but according to Mayweather and the United States Anti-Doping Association, whatever they're called, he talked to them. They said it's okay, it's in the contract, but Nevada State Athletic Commission said we weren't aware, so this shouldn't be allowed. Give us your take on what's going on with this.
Well, basically, this came out because Thomas Hauser wrote a story for SB Nation, a long expose, mostly centered around what you just said. The fact that there was a Nevada agent that went to Mayweather's house. They found an IV. Now, Mayweather applied for a therapeutic use exemption to use an IV to rehydrate.
Which he didn't get until after the fight.
Right, so he didn't officially get the exemption until after the fight.
Which makes no sense.
David Mayo had reported, or has since reported, that he did call and ask, but they didn't officially file that paperwork until about 18 days after the fight. So that is a little bit problematic.
And Pacquiao was aware of this.
But Bob Arum was aware of this. Everyone on Pacquiao's side was aware of this because they signed the contract that said you can retroactively apply for an exemption based on the terms of this fight. So everyone was aware of this. And in fact, this story was even out in May. It just hasn't even come out until now. And, there are some issues with who reported the story and whatnot, but we'll get into that, I'm sure, in a moment.
Now, of course, Mayweather has stated, he goes, because of me, that drug testing is stricter than it's ever been. He's out to prove that he is the cleanest athlete in boxing. So is anything going to come out of this story?
I really doubt it, because if anything were to come out of the story, I think it would have come out already. Again, this is something that has been known since May, so I don't know that anything comes out of it. Will this maybe add a better lens onto what is happening when it comes to drug testing in boxing? Certainly. I think that some people outside of boxing and even within boxing are maybe more aware of how this goes down. And as with everything in boxing, those waters get muddied a little bit when it comes to who's paying for this testing in the first place, who has an affiliation to who when it comes to drug testing. Again, these things are very tricky. I don't think that anything changes at all just because of this story, and certainly nothing happens to Floyd himself because of this either, and that's really what we're talking about.
Now, why aren't these agencies talking to each other? Nevada State Athletic Commission says one of the reasons why they don't want the IV ban is because it can mask potential doping agents that are in the body. Why aren't these these different bodies talking to each other to ensure that the proper testing is taking place?
That's a great question. They should be talking to one another, and Nevada should have stricter testing, but they don't want to go out of their pocket to pay for it. So you have to bring in a third party like USADA or like VADA to make this happen. Now, I mentioned this before. The one issue with the story reported by Thomas Hauser is that the main source in the story is Victor Conti. And Victor Conti is an advisor for VADA, who is the main competitor to USADA, whom the story is criticizing. So you see the issues with it there right off the hop. Number two, USADA is the organization that basically helped to put Victor Conti in jail through the Balco scandal. So the fact that he was even quoted in this story, or is the guy that we're going to for information on this topic, is very, very questionable at best.
I think when it comes down to it, people just like controversy when it comes down to Floyd Mayweather Jr. We're going to talk about this fight. He said the press conference leading in, this is going to be the last time he steps inside of the boxing ring. Is this a reality?
I think that the answer, and I've been asked this all week, obviously, is Floyd going to retire? Is a different question than is this the last time we're ever going to see Floyd Mayweather in the ring. I do think that Floyd will retire. I do think he's going to take some sort of hiatus away from the sport of boxing. He's clearly been thinking about this for quite some time, and the more that we hear Floyd talk leading up to this fight, the more conscious he seems about the damage that his uncle, Roger, and that his father, Floyd Sr., took throughout their careers. And I think he is more conscious of the struggles that they're going through now, and he doesn't want to see himself in that kind of position. If you go on, the longer that you fight after the age of 38, the more realistic that becomes, more of a possibility that becomes for Floyd Jr. So I think he's thinking about this.
At the same time, when you look at Floyd's fighting style, very, very defensive. The goal is to ensure that you don't get hit. When you look at his father and his uncle's fighting style, I can't imagine it was anything like what Floyd's style is.
Well, I think they tried to do the same.
Sure.
They weren't as good as Floyd Jr. is. But again, the longer he continues to fight, the more probable it becomes that he does start getting hit more and more often. And keep in mind, even when you have the best defensive outing you could possibly have in boxing, Floyd's marvelous defensive performances, he's still getting punched in the face 100 times. And we're at that point, as you age, when that becomes more and more dangerous. I think Floyd's aware of that. And so even if this isn't his very last fight, I still think there aren't too many more times that we're going to see Floyd in a boxing ring.
Mayweather and Berto goes down this weekend. Don't go anywhere. More FNNE is still to come.